You know the feeling. Every year, it arrives with perfect predictability. The lights come on, the music starts playing, and the sharp edges of the year just seem to dissolve. It doesn't feel like just a date on a calendar. It feels like an atmosphere, an unquestionable mood. But underneath all that warmth, something fundamental shifts in the way we think about money. A strange kind of permission is given. And understanding that permission, well, that's the key to understanding why this time of year carries such a hidden and recurring cost. See, the lie isn't that you have to spend money. The lie is emotional. It's that subtle whisper that this moment is an exception to all the normal rules, that the logic you apply to your life for 11 months of the year should just be suspended, that love and memory and meaning, they have a price tag, and that not paying it is a kind of failure. Let's dig into how this belief is actually constructed. We have to start with this mood, because it's the foundation for everything that follows. Christmas, you'll notice, presents itself as emotionally mandatory. Taking part feels less like a choice and more like a basic social requirement. And in that kind of environment, our financial defenses, they just go quiet. Budgets loosen, the careful resistance we maintain all year long simply vanishes. Now, this phenomenon isn't some accident, it's structural. It's a highly efficient engine that runs on feelings of tradition, family, and obligation. And it works so incredibly well precisely because it doesn't feel like commerce. It feels like care. And that, right there, is what makes it so powerful. So this emotional mandate, it builds into something much bigger. Because in our culture, Christmas isn't just a holiday. It's treated like a test, a public performance where our affection and our participation are put on display for everyone to see. The rules of this performance are pretty clear, aren't they? It's not enough to feel love. You have to show it through the decorated homes, through the wrapped gifts. The pressure is to externalize your care, to make it visible, especially at the end of the year, when we're already tired, reflective, and, emotionally vulnerable. And this is the crucial point. This is the reframing of the central question. It maintains the illusion of choice while effectively removing it. The decision is shifted from a practical financial one to a deeply emotional one. And in that context, spending can start to feel like the only reasonable path forward. Okay, so if that's the external pressure, how do we justify it internally? How does our own mind become an accomplice in all of this? This next part explores the psychological mechanisms that make overspending feel perfectly rational in the moment. This is the first and probably the most powerful mechanism. Our brain literally creates a bubble around December. The money spent during this period feels different. It's like it comes from a separate account that isn't subject to the same laws of gravity. The consequences, the credit card statements, that's all a problem for someone else, your future self, in January. The motivation here really shifts. It isn't purely positive, to create joy. It's often defensive, to avoid a negative outcome. The imagined pain of social regret, of being seen as cheap or uncaring, feels so much more immediate and threatening than the abstract pain of a future bill. And finally, there's this piece. By the end of the year, our most precious resources, time and energy, are just depleted. So a purchased object becomes a convenient substitute. It becomes the proof that we care, a symbol that absorbs the emotional responsibility for connection when we're just too exhausted to provide it ourselves. All right, let's zoom out. We've seen the cultural pressure and the internal psychology, but this all operates within a much larger economic architecture that quietly encourages and benefits from this very cycle. What's so critical to understand here is that no single villain designed this. It evolved naturally because the incentives of so many different industries all just happened to align. Retailers need urgent, high-volume sales. Financial institutions profit from credit and deferred payments. The media thrives on selling emotional narratives. The entire system just rewards this behavior. And that's why the system is so robust. It doesn't need overt force or manipulation. Once the cultural expectations are in place, we all start to police ourselves. Guilt and social comparison become the engines of enforcement. The system sustains itself through our willing participation. The true cost of this season is never measured in December. It arrives much later, quietly, when the lights are gone and that warm mood has completely faded. The cycle is relentless and it's predictable. First, you get the emotional mandate to spend in December. Then comes the financial consequence in January. This creates a lingering stress that lasts, until the cycle repeats itself. Over time, this actually trains us to see financial anxiety not as a problem to be solved, but as a normal, unavoidable part of the calendar. And this is the most subtle and damaging consequence of all. When the financial pressure hits, the problem is rarely identified as cultural or systemic. It feels intensely personal, a failure of our own discipline, a personal weakness. The lie completes itself. A systemic issue is successfully framed as an individual flaw. So this brings us to a final reflective space. There are no easy answers here, really, only a series of questions that sit right at the heart of this contradiction. I mean, really think about that. A holiday that is supposed to represent peace has somehow become one of the most consistent drivers of stress and anxiety in modern life. The outcome is in direct opposition to the stated goal. And again, if the core value is supposed to be generosity, why is it tied to a system that so reliably leads to debt and financial strain for millions upon millions of people? It forces us to question what we truly mean when we say the word generosity. And perhaps this is the answer. In the end, the system continues not because we're ignorant of it, but because the social cost of opting out, of resisting, it just feels higher than the financial cost of participating. The fear of being seen as cold or unloving, that's a powerful motivator. And that, right there, might be the most expensive lie of all.